Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're going to run through one of the all-time classics of horror in the 1985 film The Return of the Living Dead. Let's get to it. We open on a medical supply company based in Louisville, Kentucky. The business owner, Bert, is heading out for the night while Frank finishes giving a rundown of the operation to new recruit Freddy. He explains the organizational vernacular and lets him practice packing an order while providing an excess amount of encouragement. Afterward, he's excited to take him on a tour and show him every item in the entire warehouse.
These are split dogs.
Wow. You're an odd bird, Frank. After showing off the fresh cadaver, which he lets neighborhood kids poke with a stick for a quarter, they move on to the best part of the job, shipping forms. Meanwhile, we see Freddy's crew make their way to the warehouse while trying to decide where to party that evening. It's an eclectic group full of punks, rockabillys, zoot suiters, and general scumbags. Back at work, Frank gets to the ghost story portion of the job when he tells a tale intended to convince Freddy that Night of the Living Dead was based on a true story. The rumor is that a military-grade chemical leached into the ground near the local morgue, causing the zombie problems that were depicted in the movie. Freddy calls bullshit, but Frank has an ace in the hole. An order got mixed up and a military contractor actually delivered several barrels of evidence to their warehouse, which have been sitting in the basement ever since. Frank takes them down to show them off for a quarter, and, like a couple of ding-dongs, they play grab-ass with the barrels, which then kindly invite them to choke on it. They pass out as we see the gas enter the ventilation system and spread through the building. We then switch to a military fellow who checks in as part of a sort of national emergency notification protocol dedicated to finding the barrels. Back in Kentucky, the gang arrives to pick up Freddy 2 hours early. With nothing better to do and no real direction in life, they go fool around in a now-defunct cemetery next door. Meanwhile, Freddy and Frank wake up, discover the barrel is empty, and stumble upstairs. They try to freshen up to cover their tracks, but quickly learn that they're in a little deeper than that. Unable to think of a way out of their situation that doesn't paint them in a negative light, they call in the boss man, playing it super cash.
Bert, Frank, we have a little problem.
Bert doesn't prove particularly sympathetic. However, having the most to lose, he takes a no-nonsense approach to destroying the evidence and helping them take responsibility for their mistake. They let the jaundiced freak out, and right as things appear to spiral out of control, they manage to brain him with a pickaxe. Much to their chagrin, he continues to move. Apparently, the chemical works on the tissue level.
It worked in the movie!
But this is real life, of course. They resort to cutting the cadaver into pieces and taking them to Ernie at the crematorium. They present it to him as a rabid weasel problem, but are forced to come clean when he seems reluctant to burn living animals. Ern takes a beat to get over the desecration of his velour jumpsuit before agreeing to help them. This turns into an elementary school film strip on the water cycle, until the clouds overhead, pregnant with trioxin, spill their guts into the soil below. Inside, they consider themselves home free, other than the mysterious illness that has befallen the boys. They take a breather on the couch while awaiting the ambulance. Meanwhile, Tina has come to pick up Freddy, only to find the warehouse in disarray. She sees evidence of activity leading to the basement and goes to investigate. She's confronted by Tarman, who's been hiding in the basement the whole time, silly goose. Her escape is thwarted, and she's forced to find cover while her friends rush in to avoid the burning rain. Hearing the commotion, Suicide checks the basement. We get a cool shifting perspective shot revealing the zombie who, excited about sweet brain meats, shifts his priorities, opting to take what he can most easily get. Back at the mortuary, the medics are trying to make sense of their conscious patients who have no vital signs whatsoever. Right at this time, the gang retreats to the cemetery, but only momentarily as the dead come to address their grievances, forcing them to the front door of the mortuary right as the medics go out the back to get a couple of stretchers. The medics are descended upon, and then an enterprising zombie orders some DoorDash.
Send more paramedics.
Inside, the gang regroups in the embalming room where they demand some answers, damn it!
I don't have to tell you anything, dick brain.
Alright, Bert, be cool. They are distracted by wails of pain from Frank and Freddy, who are examined by Ernie, who recognizes their symptoms as the onset of rigor mortis. The group is forced to address the undead breaking into the sanctuary. They have to sacrifice Scuzz, but manage to hook a sweet torso in return, so it evens out. When they tie it down and begin to question it, she informs them that being dead not only sucks, but it hurts, and brains are the only thing that provide relief. They all agree there's no solution to this problem, so they take measures to improve their immediate situation, starting with moving the boys into the sanctuary in the event that they start to act wonky. Tina vows to stay behind to provide comfort like she's Florence Nightingale or something. Outside, after the police backup are similarly dispatched by the undead, Bert and Ernie have another planning session, but are interrupted when things go tits up in the sanctuary. Tina realizes she's not as altruistic as all that, and they manage to save her by blinding Freddy with acid while Frank slips out the back. Spider starts to freak out and gets bitch slapped back to reality. The new plan is to get the cop car and make it to the the outskirts of town. They run out swinging and make it to the car, but are quickly overwhelmed and have no choice but to go for help. But the horde ends up forcing them back to the medical warehouse. We leave things at the crematorium with Ernie and Tina in the attic and Freddy thrashing around blindly below, while Frank, still lucid and not fully succumbing to the brain lust, takes control of his fate by roasting himself at 450 until slightly browned at the edges, but still plump and juicy in the middle. Back at the medical warehouse, Bert and the gang deal with the problem of finding a usable phone. The least obstructed option seems to be the basement, so Bert squares up and slaps the tar man's head clean off, allowing them to lock themselves in the basement to call for help. The police are obviously confused and disorganized, offering no solutions, so Bert sucks it up and calls the number on the barrel, reaching the colonel we observed earlier. He takes down all the deets, calms them, and hands them back to the operator. Since the situation is confirmed boned, he employs the standard protocol. This results in a remote bunker control station locking in on Louisville and nuking it from the ground, quite possibly the only way to be sure at the time. They then report out on the estimated losses and anticipate a cleansing rain will put out any remaining fires and wash away their filthy deeds, with predictable results. And that was Return of the Living Dead, a low-budget horror classic with aggressive pacing and some phenomenal performances and practical effects, making it one of my all-time favorite movies. If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.